Hi, this is Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we'll be showing you how to repair your appliance. Remember, anytime you work on an appliance, make sure it's unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution. In this video we're going to show you how to change out the Whirlpool dryer door switch. It's going to be a very easy repair and should only take a few minutes to show you how to do it. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can click on the link below or get it at AppliancePartsPros.com. When you open up the package, you're going to get the door switch and the replacement wiring harness. The dryer door switch is what tells the dryer when the door is closed. The main reason to be changing it out is if it's failed and the dryer won't run. In order to get to the part, first thing we have to do is remove the top of the dryer. We're going to use a 1/4-inch nut driver to take out the screws. Now that we have the screws out, we can take the top of the dryer off. All you have to do is pull back about 1 inch or so, lift it off the dryer and set it aside. With the top out of the way, we can continue to take the dryer apart. We're going to move these 3 screws to get access to the computer so we can disconnect the ribbon cables. With the screws out of the way, we can slide the control board panel back a little bit and access the wire harnesses. We're going to disconnect all these wire harnesses in the front so we can kind of get it out of the way and then take the panel off the front. First one we're going to disconnect is this cable right here. There's a little locking tab that holds it in place. So we're going to reach in with a small flathead screwdriver and release it and carefully pull the wire harness off the control board. Next one we're going to do is the door switch wiring harness. This is the one that actually goes to the door switch. We're going to take a small flathead screwdriver and get underneath the locking tab right here and take it in half. Now we can disconnect the ribbon cables. There's a small one and a big one. Same as the other wiring harnesses. They have a little locking tabs that we have to press to release, and then we can carefully pull them off the control board. Now that we have all the wire harnesses disconnected, we're going to swing the control board panel aside and just set it on top of the dryer drum. Now we're at the front of the dryer. We're going to use our 1/4-inch nut driver to remove the 2 screws that hold the console in. Once you have the 2 screws out, we can just lift the assembly out. There's a little tab on each side that you have to watch and make sure it comes up this little opening right here. We're going to have to open up the dryer door, and at the bottom of each side of the control panel there's a little locking tab. So we're just going to flex the panel right here and release these 2. Once you have them released, you can get a little bit of a space in there, and then keeping this side up, we can go to the other side and release it. Once you have both of those released, then we can lift it up so those tabs that we showed you on the back side come out the slots, and we can lift the control panel out and set it aside. Now that we have the control panel off, we're going to remove the access panel. In order to get it off, we're going to take off the 2 1/4-inch screws at the bottom of the dryer. Once you have the screws out, you can let the panel drop down and set it aside. Now that we have the access cover out of the way, we have to remove the bracket that holds the duct onto the blower housing. We're going to use a 1/4-inch nut driver to take out the screw. Now we can disconnect the wire harness that goes up to the moisture sensor. All you have to do is take a small flathead screwdriver and release the locking tab and pull them apart. Once you have them apart, you can take the extra end and just push it inside the dryer. Now we can remove the main front panel. We're going to use our 1/4-inch nut driver to remove the 2 screws that hold the bottom on. Then we can open up the dryer door and remove the 2 screws that go through the front panel. Now that we have those screws out, we can close the dryer door. Next, we're going to remove the 2 screws that come from the back side and hold the front panel to the cabinet. Now we can loosen up these top 2 screws. We're not going to take them all the way out, but we do have to loosen them up so we can lift the front panel off. Now that we have these last screws loosened, we can pull the front panel off. We have a towel down so we can set it on the floor so it doesn't get scratched up. You want to be careful so that the inner panel and the outer panel don't fall apart before you set them down. With the front panel assembly off the dryer, we can separate the inner bulkhead from the outer panel. We're going to lift up on the bottom where the rollers are and then push it forward so this little tab comes out, and then we can set it aside. Now that we have the panel separated, we can carefully lift the panel up and set it on its bottom. Then we can take a pliers and squeeze this little retainer to get the wiring harness out. Once you have that out, then we can kind of turn it a little bit. We have to open the door and kind of have the door open. Then we have to depress these little tabs that are on each side of the door switch and press the door switch out through the front of the panel. Once you have it released, then you can feed the whole assembly through the opening in the front panel. Once you have the door switch out, you can pull it out of the panel. Here's the old door switch next to the new one. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can get it at appliancepartspros.com. To put the new door switch in, same as when we took it out, we're going to feed it through the hole in the front panel. I'm going to start with the wiring harness and the little locking tab, and the wire connectors. You want to make sure when you put it in, it's in the same direction, that the blue is out here closest to the center and the white wire is closest to the left side of the dryer. You can push it back all the way and snap it into place. Once you have it in, then we can connect the mounting tab to the frame. All you have to do is push it into the hole and lock it in place. Once you have that in, we can close the door and set the front panel back down again. To put the front bulkhead on, we're going to hook the top on first so that little tab goes underneath there, and then slide it towards the bottom of the door and let it snap into place. There's not much holding it in as we're putting it on the dryer, so you want to lift it up carefully so it doesn't fall apart while you're hanging it on the 2 screws on the front of the frame. When you put it on, you want to make sure you line the rollers up in the blower housing. You may have to lift the drum up a little bit to get them underneath. Once you have them in place, then we can put the panel in. With the panel back in place, first thing we're going to do is use our 1/4-inch nut driver to tighten down these 2 screws. Once you have them tightened down, we can put the ones in from the back side. We have to reconnect the wire harness and put that bracket on. We're going to carefully reconnect the moisture sensor harness. All you have to do is match it up and plug it in, make sure you get a good connection. And then we can use the 1/4-inch nut driver to put in the bracket that holds the lint screen housing up against the blower housing. Now we can open up the dryer door so we can put in the 2 screws that go through the front panel. Once you have the screws replaced, we can close the dryer door and put the screws in that hold the lower part of the front panel on. Now we can put the access panel back on. All you have to do is line it up with the body and push it up into place. Once you have it lined up, we can use our 1/4-inch nut driver to put the screws in. We're going to put the control panel back on. Same as when we took it off, we're going to make sure that these little tabs go into the slots, and then we can just press it down so that the other tabs on the front lock into place. Now that we have it back in place, we can use a 1/4-inch nut driver to put the screws in. With the control panel back in place, we can lift the control board assembly up and reconnect all the connectors. To connect all the wires to the main board, we're going to bring it closer back to its original position. And the first ones we're going to put on are the ribbon cables. All you have to do is very carefully push those into the slot and lock them in. Want to be careful that they go in all the way, but don't push too hard or damage them. Once you have those connected, we'll reconnect the one at the top. It's this one here with the locking tab. All you have to do is line it up and plug it into place, making sure that it locks in. And then we can grab the new wiring harness from the door switch and plug it into the main harness. It can only go one way, so line it up and plug it in so you get a good connection. Once you have the door switch wire harness connected, we can lift the panel up and twist it around and set it on the front and rear rails so we can put the screws in that hold it in place. We're going to use our 1/4-inch nut driver to put them back in. Now we can put the top back on the dryer. All you have to do is set it down onto the top and slide it forward. Now that we have the top back in place, we can put the screws back in. We're going to use our 1/4-inch nut driver to put them in. Now that we have the dryer put back together, we can plug it back in and take it for a spin. Thanks for joining us for another successful repair brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. Check out our other repair videos on our site, Facebook, and YouTube.